This gospel passage really gets my juices flowing at a personal level. It seems that Jesus has an indictment against the apostles for not believing in the resurrection, or more importantly, not believing in the witnesses that saw the risen Lord. And it seems to me at some level that Jesus is rebuking maybe even the scientific method, rebuking our suspicions, our discernment process. From the very beginning of the time when Adam and Eve supposedly ate of the tree of knowledge, we human beings have been in the process of trying to sort out fact from fiction, knowing that there's a lot of illusion out there and there's truth out there, and it's sometimes very difficult to know one from the other. So being suspicious of things, trying to use a logic and reason and discernment process to sort out fact from fiction is an important part of who we are, an essential part of who we are. So when Jesus comes along and basically says the apostles don't have a legitimate concern or a legitimate doubt that just because the tomb is empty, that there isn't a more plausible explanation than that Jesus risen from the grave, it doesn't add up. However, is that what Jesus is suggesting? That we're not supposed to be using the scientific method, that we're not supposed to be using logic and reason to sort through fact from fiction, that we're just supposed to blindly believe in all sorts of possibilities? No, that's not really the case. What Jesus is rebuking is when we get to the point where we know there's uncertainty, there's a lot of mystery out there, and when we allow our preferences to color our discernment process, that's where we get to be in trouble. That's where the sin perhaps comes about. And we see lots of examples of that. I would have to indict myself in this gospel passage, because if it was a case that I had been present when Mary Magdalene would have come back and say, I'd seen the risen Lord, I might have suspected that maybe she had one of her demons back, that she had a relapse, that she'd lost her grasp on reality. That's a more plausible explanation than that Jesus had risen from the grave. Or when the apostles or the other disciples were on their way to Emmaus, it might have been sunstroke, it might have been exhaustion, it could have been any number of things other than the fact that the risen Lord was walking and talking with them. Even if I had been an apostle and heard Jesus' prediction that he was going to rise from the grave, odds are there would have been a thought that maybe he's talking about something else metaphorically, that he's not talking about his physical body rising from the dead. There's a lot of legitimate reasons to doubt the claim that he's going to rise from the dead, or doubt the claim of eyewitnesses that saw this, that, or the other thing. The problem is when we are allowing that to color or judge or change our perceptions of other people and affected our ability to act in faith or good faith. There's lots of situations or issues in our culture that we struggle with, and we simply do not have enough data, enough statistical information to prove one way or the other with things. And they become political issues or points of contention between groups of people. And that's not good. Certainly there's uncertainty. We need more exploration, more study. But when people are acting out of conviction, we ought to at least give them credit for acting out of conviction and stop acting judgmentally. So whether or not we believe that our use of fossil fuels is contributing to global warming in a significant way becomes a political issue. There may not be enough data, but to accuse people that are nervous nillies, that they are worrying about the sky falling when in fact maybe it's just part of the natural cycle, we're accusing them of something and it's not quite right. Is there enough data? Not yet, maybe. But to assume that we like to use our fuel and therefore we can't possibly have been contributing to such a global thing is also blindness. People argue about whether or not gun control is actually going to end violence in our world. Well, there's two sides of that story. But to judge people that are trying to do right by others as people that are not using reason or logic because the statistics don't support it is a bit problematic. Even now in the midst of our pandemic, we have people arguing whether or not lifting of the quarantine is the right or wrong thing to do. Is the economic damage done to our economy as a result of the lack of work more substantial than whatever the medical cost would be for allowing it to run unchecked? People are in argument one way or the other, and emotions are evoked. So the question is, are we acting in faith, allowing our preferences, which are usually personal, to color a bigger issue? So Jesus is asking us to use our discernment process, to use the scientific method, but at some point we have to step forward in faith. Step forward to say, I'm not sure, but this is my best use of conscience, and I'm going to go this direction because I'm trying to operate out of my heart as much as I am for my head. So is Jesus condemning the scientists? No. He's condemning the people or indicting the people that are acting out of a sense of passion, but might be misguided by their own personal preference. When we are doing that, we're demonstrating the hardness of our hearts and the closedness of our minds.